Welcome, traveler. Come closer to the fire and leave the road behind you for a while. The night outside is cold. The wind has crossed many empty fields before reaching these walls, and it carries the faint sound of branches moving in the dark. There is no need to follow that sound. There is no need to wonder what walks beyond the windows. You are safe here, in the quiet warmth, while I tell you an old story from the Slavic lands. It is a story about a learned man who wanted answers that no ordinary teacher could give him. A story about an abandoned manor, an ancient ash tree, and a silver coin that should never have been turned. Most of all, it is a story about a bargain made beneath a moonless sky. So settle into a comfortable place, let the fire speak softly, let your breathing become slow and easy, and listen. Long ago, when the roads between villages were narrow tracks of mud and stone, there stood an old manor at the edge of a wide valley. The house had once belonged to a wealthy family. Its windows were tall, its roof was covered with dark wooden tiles, and two stone lions guarded the front steps. Behind the manor stretched an orchard of apple and pear trees. Beyond the orchard lay a field of pale grass. Beyond the field, where the land began to rise toward a dark forest, grew a single ancient ash tree. The tree stood alone. Its trunk was so broad that 3 men could not have reached around it with joined hands. Its roots rose from the ground like the backs of sleeping animals, and its branches spread above the field in a shape that seemed larger after sunset than it did during the day. The people of the valley did not go near that tree at night. They said its roots reached deeper than ordinary roots. They said they passed beneath the soil, beneath the buried stones, and beneath the oldest graves in the valley. Some believed the tree had grown there before the first village was built. Others said it had appeared in a single night after a storm, already tall, already old, and already hollow at its heart. No one knew the truth, but everyone agreed on one thing. On nights when the moon was hidden, a man could sometimes be seen beneath its branches. He wore a long black coat, his head was bowed, his face could not be clearly seen, and no footprints ever led toward him, only away. For many years the manor remained empty, its gates leaned inward. The orchard became wild. Birds nested in the chimneys, and rain entered through a broken part of the roof. Then, late one autumn afternoon, a stranger arrived in the valley. The stranger was not old, but there was already gray in his hair. His face was narrow, his hands were pale, and his eyes had the restless look of someone who had forgotten how to sleep. The villagers soon learned that he was a scholar. He had studied medicine, numbers, languages, stars, plants, and the hidden patterns by which he believed the world was held together. He had lived in large cities. He had visited universities and monasteries. He had spoken with doctors, priests, merchants, and travelers who claimed to know secrets older than any church. Yet knowledge had not made him peaceful. The more he learned, the more questions followed, and the more questions followed, the less he could bear not knowing the answers. The scholar purchased the old manor for almost nothing. The village clerk warned him that the roof leaked, the well was unreliable, and the north wing had not been opened in many years. The scholar asked only whether the house was quiet. The clerk said it was the quietest place in the valley. That answer pleased him. At first the villagers were curious. More than once he stood beside the ancient ash and stared upward for so long that even the crows seemed to notice him. The village priest visited the manor before the first snow. They spoke politely about the valley, the coming winter, and the repairs to the house. Before leaving, the priest asked whether the scholar had walked as far as the ash tree. The scholar said that he had. The priest advised him not to remain there after dark. The scholar smiled. He said trees did not frighten him. The priest looked toward the window where the last light rested over the field. "Do men frighten you?" he asked. The scholar considered the question. "Men can usually be understood," he said. The priest looked once more toward the ash tree and did not answer. Winter came early that year. Frost covered the valley. Snow filled the abandoned orchard and softened the broken walls around the manor. At night, the house stood alone beneath the dark sky. with warm light shining from only 3 windows. Inside, the scholar worked. The servants sometimes heard him walking after midnight. He slept for only a few hours before dawn. None of his experiments gave him what he wanted, for the scholar had not come to the valley merely to study. He had come because of a book. The book had been found many years earlier in the library of a dead nobleman. Its cover was made of dark leather. It had no title, no mark of ownership, and no name of the person who had written it. Most of the writing was in a language the scholar could not understand. The letters curved like roots and hooks. Some lines seemed to change when he looked away. Some words appeared darker at night than they did in daylight. Only one passage had been translated into the common tongue. It spoke of a place where the sky touched the roots of the earth. It spoke of an ash tree standing alone above a buried stone, and it spoke of a meeting that could take place when the last light of the moon had vanished. The book promised knowledge, not ordinary knowledge. It promised answers to questions no living teacher could answer. It promised the location of hidden springs and forgotten treasure. It promised cures for illnesses that had no name. It promised the language of birds, the paths taken by storms, and the secret signs left behind by those who had crossed from life into death. It even suggested that a man might learn how to step beyond the limits of his own years. There was, however, a price. The translated passage did not say what that price would be. It warned only that the one who asked must be prepared to give something equal to what he received. For many nights the scholar resisted. He read the warning again and again. He told himself the book was a clever fraud, a story written to frighten the foolish, a trap designed by some forgotten priest to punish curiosity. But each night, as the wind moved around the manor, his thoughts returned to the ash tree. What if the book was true? What if every answer he had searched for was waiting only a short walk away? What if fear was the final locked door between him and understanding? Then came the darkest night of the season. Clouds covered every star. Snow fell without sound. The valley lay beneath a silence so complete that the scholar could hear the soft settling of frost upon the window glass. Shortly before midnight, he made his decision. He dressed in a heavy coat. He placed a candle inside a lantern. He took the untitled book from the locked drawer beneath his desk. Before leaving, he stood for a moment in the entrance hall. Behind him waited the warm rooms of the manor, a chair beside the fire, a bed with thick blankets, a safe and ordinary life. Ahead waited the orchard, the field, and the tree. The scholar opened the door. Cold air entered the house. He stepped outside. The snow reached above his boots. Each step made a soft, dry sound. The lantern flame trembled behind its glass. He crossed the orchard slowly. At the far edge of the orchard, he stopped. The manor stood behind him, smaller now, its windows warm and distant. Across the pale field, the ash tree rose black against the sky. Someone was standing beneath it. The figure wore a long coat. Its head was bowed. The scholar could not see its face. For several moments, neither of them moved. Then the figure lifted one hand. Not to wave, not to threaten, only to show that it had been waiting. The scholar continued across the field. The closer he came to the tree, the warmer the air became. Snow around the roots had melted, exposing dark grass and wet soil. No wind moved beneath the branches. The stranger stood with one gloved hand resting against the trunk. When the scholar entered the shadow of the tree, the stranger spoke. His voice was quiet. It sounded neither young nor old. "You have brought the book." The scholar held it more tightly. "Who are you?" The stranger tilted his head. "Is that the first answer you wish to purchase?" The scholar said nothing. Somewhere among the branches, a crow moved in its sleep. The stranger extended a gloved hand. "Show me the page." The scholar opened the book to the translated passage. The stranger looked at it for only a moment. Then he laughed softly. It was not a cruel laugh. That made it worse. "You have read a very small part," he said. "The rest was hidden from you. Can you read it?" "I was there when it was written." The scholar felt the cold more deeply then. Still, he did not leave. "What does it promise?" "Whatever you truly desire." "And the price?" "That depends on what you ask." The scholar looked back toward the manor. The windows glowed beyond the field. For a moment he imagined himself returning, closing the door, and allowing the mystery to remain unsolved. But he had not crossed the snow for safety. "I want to understand what others cannot," he said. The stranger waited. "I want knowledge of illness and death. I want to know the hidden workings of the world. I want to see beyond the veil that covers ordinary eyes." "For how long?" The scholar had not expected the question. "For as long as I live." The stranger's hidden face turned slightly toward the branches. "Then you ask for more than a life contains. Give me what can be given." The stranger reached into his coat. He removed a small silver coin. It was black on one side and bright on the other. He placed it upon the open book. "You will have 7 years," he said. "For 7 years the words of this book will open to you. What you learn may be used as you choose. And after 7 years, I will return." "For what?" The stranger smiled. The scholar could not see his face clearly, but he could see the smile. "For the part of you that still belongs to the night?" The scholar tried to understand the words. "My soul." Men use many names for things they do not understand. The stranger placed one finger upon the black side of the coin. "You may refuse." The scholar looked at the coin. He thought of every question that had followed him since childhood. He thought of every locked door, every unanswered prayer, and every dying patient whose hand he had held, while knowing there was nothing more he could do. 7 years seemed a long time, long enough to learn, long enough to prepare, long enough perhaps to discover a way to escape the agreement. "There must be a condition," the scholar said. The stranger waited. "You may return after 7 years, but you may claim your payment only when moonlight touches my face." The stranger was silent for so long that the scholar began to hear his own breathing. Then the stranger nodded. "Moonlight must touch your face. No lamp, no fire, no reflection made by human hands. The moon itself." Again the stranger nodded. "The moon itself." The scholar felt a quiet satisfaction. The final night could be spent indoors, beneath stone and timber. He could close every shutter and block every crack. He could wait until sunrise. The stranger moved the coin closer to him. "Turn it," he said. The scholar placed his fingers upon the metal. It was warm. He turned the coin from black to silver. At once the wind stopped. The clouds opened above the valley, and though there had been no moon, a pale circle appeared in the sky. It was thin and distant, like a moon seen through deep water. Its light touched the highest branches of the ash tree but did not reach the ground. The trunk creaked. The lantern went out. For one breath, the scholar saw the stranger's face. It looked almost human, almost. Then the clouds closed. Darkness returned. The stranger was gone. Only the coin remained upon the open page. The scholar returned to the manor before dawn. He locked the door. He placed the coin inside a small wooden box and hid the box beneath a loose stone in the study wall. Then he opened the untitled book. For the first time, he understood every word. The pages described herbs that grew only beneath certain stars. They explained how fever traveled through the blood. They showed the shape of storms before clouds appeared above the horizon. They told where water moved underground. They told how to hear weakness in the beating of a heart. They told how to listen for the final breath of a dying candle. The scholar read until morning. Then he read through the day, and when night came, he was still reading. During the weeks that followed, his life changed. Villagers began to visit the manor. At first, only the desperate came. A mother brought a child who had been burning with fever for 6 days. The local healer had tried every remedy she knew. The scholar examined the child, mixed a bitter drink from bark, honey, and dried roots, and told the mother to keep the room cool. By morning, the fever had broken. Word spread through the valley. People came from distant villages, then from towns, then from cities. They brought food, silver, wine, cloth, and gifts. The scholar refused most of it. He asked only for books, more books, always more books. The scholar hired more servants, but he rarely spoke to them. He spent his nights in the study. Sometimes the servants heard him talking to someone. When they entered, he was alone. The first year passed, then the second. The scholar became famous. Nobles sent carriages to ask for his advice. Doctors traveled for many days to question him. Priests argued with him. Merchants paid him to predict storms, floods, and poor harvests. He was rarely wrong. A week before a great storm, he ordered the villagers to move their animals from the low fields. The river rose higher than anyone remembered, but no lives were lost. For a time the scholar was loved, yet as his knowledge grew, his sleep became lighter. He began to dream of the ash tree. In those dreams the stranger stood beneath the branches. Each time he seemed a little closer to the manor. During the first year he stood beside the roots. During the second he stood at the edge of the field. During the third he stood among the dead trees of the orchard. The scholar told no one. He continued to study. He believed there must be a weakness in the agreement. Every bargain, he thought, was built from words, and every collection of words contained a space through which a clever man might escape. He had already protected himself with the condition of moonlight. Still, he wanted certainty. He searched the untitled book. He searched ancient records. He wrote letters to monasteries and paid travelers to bring him stories from distant places. Some stories told of men who had tried to cheat dark spirits. One man hid inside a church, only to hear a familiar voice calling from beneath the altar. The scholar dismissed the stories. Those men had been ordinary, frightened, careless. He was not ordinary. In the third year he built a room beneath the manor. The scholar called it his safe room, though he allowed no one else to enter. He covered the walls with dark cloth so that no light could be reflected. He placed a bed, a table, water, food, candles, and enough oil for several days. On the final night, he planned to lock himself inside before sunset. No moonlight could touch him there. The thought comforted him. For several months he slept more peacefully. Then, one winter night, he dreamed that he was lying in the hidden room. The iron door was locked. The candles were burning. A pale light appeared beneath the bed. He bent down and saw the moon shining from a deep pool of water where the stone floor should have been. In the reflection, the stranger stood behind him. The scholar woke in his study with the silver coin clenched in his hand. He had hidden it inside the wall. The stone remained in place. The box remained closed. Yet the coin was warm against his palm. By the fourth year, the scholar had changed. His hair had become white. His face was thinner. He no longer treated the villagers unless their illness interested him. He no longer spoke kindly. When people thanked him, he looked impatient. When they wept, he seemed distracted. When a cure failed, he did not mourn. He returned to his books as though the person had been only an unfinished problem. He had begun to see ordinary lives as brief things, small candles in a dark room. Some burned a little longer, some burned a little brighter, but all went out. Only knowledge seemed permanent. Only knowledge seemed worthy of love. One evening, the village priest returned to the manor. The scholar received him in the study. 7 mirrors now covered the walls. The priest looked at them before sitting. "You went to the tree," he said. The scholar did not answer. "You were warned. I have saved lives." "That is not the same as saving yourself." The scholar smiled. "I have time." "How much?" The scholar looked toward the fire. 3 years. The priest closed his eyes. "And you think you can escape him?" "I know I can." The priest looked around the study. "What are the mirrors for?" "The old stories say certain beings cannot cross their own reflection." "Do you believe that?" "I believe all creatures obey rules." The priest leaned forward. "And what if the rules were written by the creature?" For the first time, the scholar appeared uncertain. The priest continued, "Some doors are not traps for what stands outside. Some doors are traps for the one who opens them." The scholar turned away. "You came here to frighten me." "I came because I saw a man in your orchard." The room became very still. "When?" "Last night." The scholar looked toward the dark windows. "What did he do?" "He looked toward this room." The scholar walked to the western window. At first he saw only darkness. Then the wind moved the clouds and weak moonlight spread across the snow. For a moment someone appeared to be standing between the trees, tall, still, watching. The scholar drew the curtain. When he turned, the priest was staring at the small wooden box on the desk. The scholar did not remember placing it there. "Do not touch that," he said. The priest opened it. The coin lay inside, black side upward. The scholar froze. He was certain he had left the silver side showing. The priest whispered a prayer. The coin turned by itself. The silver side rose. The fire went out. Every mirror in the room became dark. And from somewhere behind the scholar came the sound of slow breathing. The priest dropped the box. The coin rolled beneath the desk. The darkness lasted only a few breaths. Then the fire returned. The mirrors reflected the room again. The priest stood pale and shaking. The scholar searched beneath the desk. The coin was gone. They found it the following morning. It was resting on the outside window sill. The window had been locked from within. After that night, the priest refused to enter the manor again. The scholar increased his preparations. He placed iron above every door. He drew circles of salt around the study and the hidden room. He purchased bells from an abandoned chapel and hung them throughout the corridors. If anything entered the house, he believed the bells would ring. He no longer slept in a bed. Instead, he rested in a chair beside the fire, the untitled book open in his lap. The 5th year passed, then the 6th. The scholar found no certain escape. The book, once so generous, began to change. Many pages appeared blank. Other pages repeated the same sentence. A promise freely given cannot be broken by the one who gave it. The scholar tried burning the book. The fire would not touch it. He threw it into the well. The next morning it was waiting on his desk, dry and warm. He cut the pages with a knife. The blade broke. He buried the book beneath the cellar floor. That night he dreamed of the stranger standing beside his chair. When he woke, the book rested upon his chest. 1 year remained. The scholar stopped receiving visitors. The manor gates were locked. The servants were dismissed one by one. Some left willingly. Others fled after hearing bells ring in empty rooms. The oldest servant, a woman who had cared for the house since the scholar arrived, stayed longer than the rest. One morning, she found him standing in the entrance hall before dawn. All the doors were open. Snow had blown across the floor. "Sir," she said softly, "what are you doing?" He turned toward her. "Someone came down from the upper rooms. There is no one upstairs. I heard him." The servant left before noon. The scholar remained alone. Each night he walked through the manor with a candle. He checked the doors. He checked the shutters. He checked the iron plates and the lines of salt. Sometimes he saw a movement in the mirrors, a coat passing through the room behind him, a hand resting upon the back of his chair, a shadow standing where no one stood. When he turned, there was nothing. During the final winter, the snow did not melt around the manor. The sun rose, the sky brightened, smoke rose from chimneys in the village, but the house remained beneath a pale frost. Birds avoided the roof. Dogs refused to approach the gates. The villagers began to hear bells at midnight. Not the church bell. The small bells inside the manor. One would ring, then another, beginning at the front door, moving slowly through the corridors, closer to the study. Night after night, the scholar counted the days. 30 remained, then 20, then 10. He prepared the hidden room with food and water. He tested the iron door again and again. He sat inside during the day and searched for even the smallest thread of light. There was none. He began to believe he might survive. On the 7th night before the agreement ended, he saw footprints in the orchard. They began beneath the ash tree. They crossed the field. They entered the orchard. They stopped beneath his window. There were no tracks leading away. On the 6th night, the bells rang from the front door to the staircase. On the 5th, they reached the upper corridor. On the 4th, the scholar heard 3 quiet knocks from inside the walls of the hidden room. On the 3rd, every mirror in the manor showed the ash tree. No matter which room he entered, its black branches appeared behind him. On the 2nd night, the moon disappeared. The sky was clear. The stars shone, but there was no moon. The final day arrived. The scholar woke before sunrise, though he did not remember falling asleep. The untitled book lay open on the desk. A new line had appeared on the final page. Tonight the account will be closed. He tore the page from the book. For the first time the paper came free. It crumbled in his hand like dry ash. The scholar spent the morning preparing the hidden room. He checked the walls, he checked the ceiling, he checked beneath the bed. Nothing could bring moonlight into that chamber. At noon he heard someone walking through the orchard. He did not look through the window. In the afternoon, 3 knocks sounded at the front door. He did not answer. At sunset, the villagers gathered inside the church. The priest told them to remain indoors. No one was to approach the manor. No one was to answer a knock at the door. No one was to look toward the ash tree. The priest lit every candle in the church. Then he began to pray. At the manor, the scholar entered the hidden room and closed the iron door. He locked it from within. He wrapped the chain around the handle and secured it to a ring set into the stone wall. Then he lit the candles. The chamber was small, warm, and silent. The scholar sat on the bed. For the first time in many months, he smiled. The stranger had agreed to the condition. Moonlight must touch his face. No moonlight could reach him here. The evening passed slowly. Hours passed. The candles burned lower. Somewhere far above, a bell rang. The scholar stopped reading. A second bell answered. Then a third. The sound traveled through the entrance hall. A fourth bell rang near the staircase. A fifth sounded in the upper corridor. A sixth rang outside the library. The scholar stood. The hidden room had no bell. He listened. For a long time there was silence. Then the iron door gave a soft knock. 3 times. The scholar held the holy book against his chest. Again 3 quiet knocks. He did not answer. A voice spoke from the other side. 7 years. The scholar closed his eyes. You cannot enter. Open the door. The door is locked. Then why are you afraid? The scholar looked at the candles. Their flames were steady. The condition has not been met, he said. There is no moonlight here. The stranger did not answer at once. Then came the same soft laugh the scholar had heard beneath the ash tree. You still believe the night ends at your walls. 1 candle went out. The scholar stepped back. A second candle went out, then a third. The room did not grow darker. Instead, a pale light appeared along the edge of the floor. The scholar stared at it. The light was silver. It came from beneath the bed. He remembered his dream. He did not want to look. Still, he bent slowly and lifted the hanging blanket. The stone floor beneath the bed had become smooth and dark, like the surface of deep water. A full moon shone within it. Not a reflection from above, a moon beneath the floor. Its pale face looked upward from an impossible sky. The scholar covered his eyes. That is not the moon, he said. It is a trick. The voice came from the other side of the door. Then uncover your face. The scholar kept his hands over his eyes. No reflection made by human hands, he said. You agreed. No human hand made this. The silver light spread across the floor. It touched the legs of the bed. It climbed the stone walls like rising water. The remaining candles went out one by one. The scholar turned his back to the light and pressed his face against the dark cloth. You cannot claim me, he whispered. Behind him the wooden box opened. He heard the coin roll across the floor. It moved in a slow circle around the room. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped beside his foot. The scholar did not look down. Turn it, said the stranger. No, you turned it once. I was deceived. You were warned. The scholar felt cold air touch the back of his neck. The iron door was still locked. The chain remained tight. Yet someone was breathing inside the room. The scholar slowly lowered one hand. The pale light had reached the ceiling. The chamber was no longer beneath the manor. Above him spread a moonless sky. Around him stood the ancient ash tree. Its roots crossed the floor. Its branches moved without wind. Beyond them, the pale fields stretched into darkness. The iron door remained in the stone wall, but the wall now stood alone beneath the branches. The stranger waited on the other side of the tree. Snow rested upon his black coat. "This is not possible," the scholar said. "You asked to see beyond the veil that covers ordinary eyes." The stranger stepped closer. "Now you see." The scholar backed away until his shoulders touched the trunk. "The moon is gone. Look above you." The scholar refused. The stranger raised one gloved hand. The silver coin rose from the ground and floated between them. Its bright side began to glow. The scholar closed his eyes. "A coin is not the moon." "No," the stranger said, "but every promise carries a reflection of the moment it was made." The coin turned slowly. Within its surface, the scholar saw the moonless night from 7 years before. He saw the clouds open. He saw the pale circle above the valley. He saw himself standing beneath the ash tree with his face lifted toward the sky. The light in the coin grew stronger. The scholar covered his face again. "You said the moon itself. And what do you think the moon is?" The stranger's voice was very near now. "A stone? A lamp? A face in the sky? You asked for knowledge, but you still believe a thing can be only where your eyes expect to find it." The scholar felt something cold touch his wrist. He pulled away. The holy book fell from his hand. Its pages were blank. "I used your gift for good," he said. "I healed the sick. I saved children. I warned the valley of storms. You also turned away those who bored you. You watched suffering as if it were an experiment. You loved the answer more than the life it might save. I am still better than I was. Perhaps." The stranger stepped into the silver light. For the first time the scholar saw his face clearly. It was not monstrous. The face was calm and pale. It looked almost familiar. Then the scholar understood why. The stranger had his eyes, restless, proud, hungry for every locked door. The scholar stared at him. "Who are you?" The stranger gave the same answer as before. "Is that the final answer you wish to purchase?" The ash tree creaked above them. Far away, bells began to ring. Every bell in the manor, every bell in the church, every bell tied to a door or a horse throughout the valley. Their sound filled the night. The silver coin turned in the air. The bright side faced the scholar. Moonlight touched his cheek. For one breath, nothing happened. Then the scholar felt the world become very still. The bells stopped. The stranger lowered his hand. "The account is closed," he said. The scholar looked down. His body had begun to fade, not like smoke, not like mist. He became pale and thin, like a reflection disappearing from old glass. The ground beneath him showed through his hands. He tried to step away, but the roots of the ash tree seemed to pass through his feet. "Where are you taking me?" The stranger looked toward the manor. Its windows glowed across the field, warm and distant, just as they had on the first night. "You asked to see beyond ordinary eyes." That was not an answer. "No," the stranger said. "It was a door." The scholar reached for the trunk of the tree. His hand entered the dark wood without resistance. The scholar tried to pull his hand back. The vision vanished. The stranger stood beside him. "Come willingly," he said. "And if I refuse, you have already begun to leave." The scholar looked once more toward the manor. He thought of the warm room he had abandoned 7 years earlier. He thought of the villagers he had healed. He thought of the people he had refused to see. He thought of the priest's warning and the servant's frightened face. Then he thought of the untitled book. So many pages still unread. So many questions still unanswered. Even now, fear did not silence his curiosity. That frightened him more than the stranger. "Will I understand?" he asked. The stranger did not smile. "You will continue to ask." The ash tree opened, not with a crack or the tearing of wood. Its trunk simply became deeper than it had been before. Darkness waited inside. The scholar stood at its edge. The moonlight remained upon his face. What happened next has never been agreed upon. Some say the scholar stepped into the tree because he could not resist the promise of one more answer. Some say he refused and the roots closed around his shadow while his body remained in the field. Some say the stranger never took him at all. They believe the scholar escaped by turning the coin back to its black side at the final moment. And some say there was no stranger, only a frightened man, alone in an old house, driven mad by the knowledge he had gathered and the promise he believed he had made. At sunrise, the priest and several villagers approached the manor. The front door stood open. Snow had blown into the entrance hall. The small bells were still. They followed a line of pale frost through the library to the hidden door behind the shelf. The iron chain remained wrapped around the handle. The lock was closed from within. The villagers called the scholar's name. No one answered. A blacksmith cut through the chain. The iron door opened slowly. The hidden room was empty. The candles had burned only halfway down. The holy book lay open on the floor, every page blank. There was no window, no opening, and no second door. There was no sign of the scholar. Only the silver coin remained. It lay in the center of the room, black, side upward. The villagers searched the manor. They searched the orchard, the field, and the forest. They found no body, no tracks, no coat, no trace of where the scholar had gone. Near the ash tree, the priest found the untitled book lying upon the snow. Its pages were empty. Every word had vanished. The priest carried it to the church and locked it inside a stone chest. That night, the church bells rang once at midnight. In the morning, the chest was open. The book was gone. The priest ordered the manor sealed. The gates were locked. The windows were covered. No one lived there again. Years passed. The roof began to fall. The orchard became wild. The path disappeared beneath grass and thorns. But the ash tree remained. Travelers sometimes reported seeing a light in an upper window of the ruined manor, a single candle burning in the abandoned study. Others heard bells ringing inside the empty house. One bell near the front door, another by the stairs, another in the corridor, always moving toward the library. Many years later, a young shepherd entered the ruins during a storm. Inside the manor, the entrance hall was dark, but a warm light shone from the old study. The shepherd followed it. He found a man sitting beside a dead fireplace. The man's hair was white, his face was thin, an open book rested upon his knees. The shepherd asked whether the man needed help. The man looked up, then he asked a question. "What year is it?" The shepherd answered. The man lowered his head. He began to laugh, quietly, sadly. The shepherd noticed a silver coin on the table. Its bright side faced upward. The man closed the book. "Do not touch it," he said. The shepherd fled. When he returned the next morning with several villagers, the study was empty. But on the wall, where no mirror had hung for many years, they found a smooth piece of glass. It showed the ancient ash tree beneath a moonless sky. Under the tree stood two men. One wore a long black coat. The other held a book. The villagers covered the mirror with cloth. By the next day, it had disappeared. Even now, the people of the valley avoid the ruins after dark. They say the bargain was never truly completed. They say the scholar still walks through rooms hidden inside the ash tree, reading books that have no final page. They say the stranger waits beneath the branches, not for the scholar, but for someone else. Someone restless, someone clever, someone who believes every warning is meant for ordinary people. And sometimes, on the darkest nights, a silver coin is found upon the road, black on one side, bright on the other. No one in the valley will touch it. But travelers do not know the old warnings. Travelers see only silver. They pick it up, they turn it in their fingers. And somewhere beyond the field, from beneath the branches of the ancient ash tree, a quiet voice begins to count. 1 year, 2 years, 3, until the moon disappears again. The fire is lower now, traveler. The road outside is hidden beneath the night, but you are safe here. The windows are closed. The door is locked, and the old ash tree is very far away. Let the story fade now. Let the bells grow silent. Let the dark field disappear beneath the snow. You do not need to follow the scholar into the tree. You do not need to open the book. There is nothing more you need to know tonight. Rest your thoughts. Let your breathing remain slow. Let the warmth of the fire stay with you as the valley grows distant. Sleep well, traveler. And do not worry about the small silver sound you may hear outside the door. It is probably only the wind.